Ladies and gentlemen, it's Frostbyte. Here we are again. You know their content, you know their names. But in this series, I'm going to ask them about how they got started. Join me today as we find out more about your favorite stackers and your favorite collectors. We are honored today to have Dr. Stacker of Stackers University. Dr. Stacker, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, Frostbyte, thank you so much for having me, brother. I really appreciate it. It's very exciting to be here with you.
So before we begin, just so my viewers kind of understand the premise of your channel, can you talk to them a little bit about what you do and what the premise of your channel is?
Sure. Stackers University is kind of, as the name applies, very much an educational channel. And I tried to bring something very different to the space, the YouTube space, in terms of a channel that's very much around educating folks and making sure they understand the principles, the guidelines. And really, it was a channel that I started because it was what I wanted when I went to YouTube to learn more and to kind of see what was going on in the space. And there's lots of great channels, and there's just no shade to any channel for what they do. But I was looking for something very different. I wanted something where I walked away after every video like, hey, I learned something. There was something of value there for me in terms of being able to be a better stacker and an investor. And so I was a little frustrated, frankly, because I just wasn't getting what I wanted. And between the algorithm and all that craziness, I just couldn't find it. And finally, I got to a place where, like, you're complaining, but what are you doing about it ultimately? And
right.
I was like, I'm just going to start a channel. And it was just totally an insane idea in my brain. But it's very much my path in life, being an educator and always just trying to help people get what they want to get out of life. I find tremendous value in that. And, that's what my entire career in education has been about. And so this was just kind of, in some ways, a natural progression. I would have never anticipated it. I would have never anticipated it working. But I think that's part of life, right? Where you have to decide, am I going to go after it? And am I really going to go after it, right? Like sometimes we do things and we're half-hearted about it, but am I really going to put that effort into it and see where it goes? And fortunately, I've been, blessed beyond my belief. I can't believe how much the channel has grown. Obviously, I would love it to have grown more, but in the big scheme of things, I think my first video was like March 7th or 8th. I can never remember dates. And so 9 months in, and we're approaching 5,000 subscribers and done over 100 videos, and it's been an exciting journey. I would have never imagined the response, especially as an educational channel, right? It's not as sexy or entertaining. It's fun to watch people unbox stuff. I get that. But to say to someone, you spent your whole day at work, your brain is fried, and now you got to listen to this crazy dude talk to you and try to, stretch your brain a little more for, 7 to 12 minutes. There's a lot to ask of people. And so I knew it was going to be a little bit of an uphill battle. But it's been beyond belief, and the Stackers University community is incredible. Folks are wonderful. The feedback and they appreciate what they've been able to gain from the channel, and I just love it. I love helping. So it's been a great journey.
That's awesome. One thing that you said is that you created it out of necessity. Plato stated that necessity is the mother of invention.
Absolutely.
And so I really like the fact that, whenever you're talking about things like problem solving, you don't just come to the world and say there's a problem. You come and you say, hey, there's a problem. Here's some potential solutions.
Absolutely.
So I really appreciate that as a process guy. It's something that I live by. And so that really rings true with me. And I'm sure a lot of viewers and listeners are going to hear the same thing. Let's talk about the other component of that. And the other component is the passion. So, what was it that actually stemmed the interest in things like stacking and bullion and fine coins and things of that nature?
So I'm going to answer your question, I promise. But if anyone's been around stackers, they know I take you on a journey to get you to a location ultimately. And it's tough, right? Because sometimes people are like, "Can you just get to the point?" And I'm like, "No. If I get you straight to the point, it's so easy for you to miss it and forget it. And if I take you on a journey and I engage you fully, then those lessons and the information sticks with you in a very different way."
Well, yeah,
And
they
so
say life isn't about the destination; it's about the journey.
right. Like I love the whole like Don Quixote and Sancho Panza story of, they're riding through the desert. And Sancho Panza's like, "I want to know where we're going. I want to know where you're going." And Don Quixote's like, "Yo, relax. It's about the journey." Right.
Yeah.
And you get to experience things in a very different way. And I want to go back to a little bit of a comment, and then I'll kind of jump into kind of like how I got started here. And I loved what you were referencing, because I think it's it at some point for me, it's about what value do I add, right? What value do I add to the lives of people around me? It's so easy to get caught up in what am I going to get. And viewers of my channel know that I've quoted this Zig Ziglar quote, and I've changed it a little bit, but ultimately it's, you can have everything in this world that you want if you just help other people get what they want. And I say, if you help enough other people get what they want. And it's true. My life has just been incredible because of this kind of servant leadership, right? Like Greenleaf speaks about in his book. But what are you doing to make people better? And that's what my channel is about. Like when you finish a video, I want you to feel like you're better off, that you've learned something, you've gained something that's going to help you. And if I've done that, then I feel pretty darn good. And my journey to kind of hard shift here, but my journey to stacking is a little different. And I kind of laugh sometimes because there are times when I almost feel like a counterfeit within the community because I started in real estate. I was a real estate investor, and rich dad, poor dad, like many people, changed my life, but not everyone puts it into practice. It literally changed my life. And it's such a fascinating experience in my life because the book showed up on my doorstep without any information from Amazon. I don't know who ordered it for me. I take that back. Fast forward 12 years later, I find out who sent it to me, but I didn't know who sent it to me. And this book just showed up. And I'm like, I don't know what the heck this is. Boom, I open up the book and I start reading. And I often talk about Alice in Wonderland, where the things that make sense on this side of the glass don't make sense on the other side of the glass.
Right.
And it's such a perfect analogy for stacking and fiat money, right? That when you really understand that money, paper money, fiat, is just an agreement. It's just a piece of paper. It could be a handwritten note from me for all intents and purposes, but we just agree that it has value. Then you realize that this really is a house of cards, and then you can start to understand the game, right, and how to play the game better. So I started in real estate, and frankly, I was an investor first, and I was whatever it is I do, I've always subscribed to, I have more time than I have money. So I'm going to spend my time first, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to make sure I understand what I'm doing. Because the other thing, and this is very unfortunate, but when you really get into almost anything in life, your advisors can only be as smart as you are. So
Right.
if your level of sophistication and knowledge as the investor is low, well, you're going to get low level advice from your advisors because that's what they understand. That's what you can understand. I have a
Just like
daughter.
the computer.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I have a daughter. She asks me wonderful questions. Now, there's a 9-year-old answer I can give her. There's a high school level answer I can give her, and et cetera, et cetera. And so my job is to give her the answer that she can handle at that moment. And your advisors and the people that you surround yourself with that are part of your team can only be as smart as you. And so I learned that I needed to learn first so that I could have more sophisticated conversations. And really it started around taxes. And I was doing real estate and I was like, hey, I'm getting killed here. And so that kind of started me down this financial path. And then I realized that you know there's a I ultimately I became a mortgage lender and had my license to do that. And I did it a little bit, but really what it was really about was I wanted to put my own deals together because those lenders are making a ton of money off of me. Well, let's just cut that out and let me do this myself. So I got to a place where I was like, okay, great, things are going well, but I've got a lot of assets on paper. And Robert G. Allen in his book, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the book, but he speaks about your real goal is to live like a king, but to look like a pauper on paper. And so that started me down the road of getting into precious metals because it was a wonderful way to get money off of the grid, so to speak. And I made my first purchase. Again, I'm old, so I can't remember everything. Somewhere around 2006, 2007, something like that. And it was a 100-ounce bar. And in one of my videos, I actually did a Google search and found the coin shop that it actually went down at in the city of La Habra in Los Angeles. And I remember buying that 100-ounce bar, and it was $1,081. And back then, there wasn't any like stuff about premiums and nonsense like that. It was just right, and it was this ugly bar. I mean, it's just an ugly bar. It's stamped and it had 100 ounces, and it had the symbol for silver, but it was just this ugly bar. And I remember like walking out like, wow, I've done something special here. Like I understand the matrix a little bit more now. And so that was really a turning point. And then I started really getting in and finding all kinds of crazy deals where, people would send you silver back then that, you sign up for a place and, give them your information. And I was getting, free, American Eagles sent to me for just, kind of inquiring about the company and things like that. And then I started building then. And I remember the jokes from my friends that like I was becoming a pirate because, I had all these coins and bars and things like that. But I knew it was different. I knew it was real money. I remember that feeling of walking out and looking at it. And I was like, wow, this is significant. I didn't know how significant, but I knew it was significant. And I knew it was going somewhere. I just didn't know where it was going. And I think that's a lot about life, right? Where you're taking these steps on your path, and you almost have to trust it, right? Don't worry about the destination, worry about the journey. And if your journey is pure and your journey is good, then the destination will take care of itself in some real ways. So that was a long answer for you. So I apologize, brother. But anyone that's been on my channel knows I talk a lot.
It's okay. So do I. So keep it serious in that regard. Not a problem. A couple points that I really liked from that. Number one is to understand where we're going, we have to understand where we've been.
Yes.
And so to understand your journey of why is your channel so informative? Why are you really attuned to that? And that was because you identified that there was a gap in your history. You wanted to understand. You found that there was a gap socially online or wherever it was, and you wanted to fill that gap. There's an old cartoon, or not old cartoon, I mean old for me, but called Robots.
Oh yeah.
And Mr. Big Weld says, fill a need, find a need, fill a need. And so I really like that you brought us kind of on the journey with you. But I have to ask, we've talked about the 100-ounce bar being the thing that was like, wow, this is mine, right? This is the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
ooh, I got it. It's in my hands. Personally, I've never held 100 ounces of silver. I don't know what that feels like. But we all tie this to some sort of emotional connectivity. Is there anybody in your connecting history, your collecting history, connecting history in lines of financial, fiscal lines? Is there collecting lines that somebody that really cemented this, or was it just you found this and that's where you wanted to go? That was your
Oh,
plan.
absolutely. So that's a great question because, and the name's generic enough that I'll say it. My best friend, matter of fact, I just talked to him two or three nights ago. He called me out of the blue, and we were thick as thieves all the way through high school. We went to the same college, but his dad, Dr. Jackson, and I remember, just us going to high school together, growing up, and Dr. Jackson taught us a lot. He was an optometrist, and he did very well for himself, and he had his own business. And I just remember having these, and I remember because I grew up poor, and I knew I didn't want to stay poor. I just didn't know how the hell to get out of it, or how the heck to get out of it. Excuse me. and my buddy's dad was like a proxy dad for me because my father passed away when I was really young, and he taught me so many important lessons about life. And one that has always remained with me is it is never how much you make, it is how much you spend. And that has always stuck with me. And I remember my first job out of college, I made $16,000. Now, this wasn't like 1988, right? This was actually like 1997, and I made $16,000 a year, and it was a 10-month contract on top of that. So I got $1,600 a month, and I was rich. I blew money. I didn't even know, like it was ridiculous, and doesn't sound like a lot because it wasn't a lot, but I was working at a college, so I lived in a residence hall. They paid for the housing. I had a meal plan. So all these life expenses were covered for me. So I had this money, and I was like, life is good. And so that's always stuck with me around. It's never how much you make, it's how much you spend. And the how much you spend, you get to control. The problem is our American culture, and let me not even pick on culture for the moment. Let me just say it this way: the capitalism, our system is set up on who owes who, and the more you owe someone else, the poorer you're going to be, and the more people owe you, the better off you're going to be. And our system literally functions off of debt and people being in debt to the system. And that has influenced our American culture to be very much about material things. And so we fill our emptiness, our sadness, our whatever with these things that feel real, as opposed to things that are really real, right? It's the fast food of America, right? That it's a meal, but is it really a great meal? Yeah, you can find better meals, but I can get this in less than 5 minutes, so it works. And I think that's so much of our culture that we just kind of fall into this trap of empty calories, of empty lives, of empty assets, things that seem like we're doing well, but when you really break it down, you go, no, that's not really wealth. That's not really good living. And so that early input from Dr. Jackson really made a huge impact on my life. And what's fascinating is he used to give his sons, they used to have silver coins. I didn't remember that for a large majority of my life. It wasn't until, I really got into stacking that I go, I remember that now all of a sudden. And so it's amazing sometimes how things get imprinted in your brain, but you don't notice. And then later on you go, oh, there's the connection. Because he gave his kids silver coins and gold coins as they were growing up as gifts. And, they had the little books and things like that, and they collected different years. And I had no idea what that was growing up poor. And now I look back and go, oh, right. And that's the difference, that the wealthy and even the rich, their children get these lessons much earlier than we do. And that's part of what I love about doing this work is I want to help folks crack that code earlier, because it took me so long to crack that code that if I would have figured it out a lot earlier, I'd be in a very different situation. And we don't understand the game of money. Most of us as regular people, working class folks, we don't understand it. We exist and we think we're, it's the Robert Kiyosaki rat race thing. We think we're doing something. And as I did in one of the videos, like, we cannot be like recessionary caterpillars where we confuse activity with accomplishment.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. You like, just because your legs are moving doesn't mean you're running. Just because you're in the car, the windows are down, and you feel a breeze and you hear the engine and you got your foot on the gas, it doesn't mean you're going anywhere. Right. The car can still be in park. So we can't fall victim to that. And I think the system is very much set up that way for us to give us that illusion of it. And so I think as we try to figure out how do we make the best lives for ourselves, we have to realize what's real, what's not real, and understand how this game is played. And they play by the wealthy and rich play by different rules, different tax rules, and they play the game differently. And that was my frustration. Was I saw a lot of stacking stuff, and I was like, but that's not how the game is played, right? The game is played by math. Like, yeah, I love these sovereign coins. I think they're beautiful. But when you do the math, what you pay on the front end, what you get on the back end, there's a large gap there. And when I buy a generic, what I pay on the front end and what I get back on the back end is quote unquote less, but the spread is different. And so I just felt like people were getting the wrong message. And it's very much American culture, right? The flashy, the sovereign coins are the flashy. They look good, they feel good, right? They're legal tender. Who cares if it's legal tender? It's $1, right? If you buy a silver eagle, it's $1. If you want to use your American silver eagle for $1, I will send you my address. You send me all the eagles you want, and I'm going to send you $2 because I am that kind of guy.
My email address is in the description below. Okay.
Right? Hey, this is your video. Hold on now. No. Right. But we find these crazy reasons to try to make sense of the world, and it doesn't make sense. Because Alice in Wonderland, what's on one side of the mirror, the way you do it makes sense. But when you get on the other side of the mirror, it doesn't make sense. And what we have to teach people is how to do it on the other side of the mirror, because that's where the rich and the wealthy are.
But I really like the fact that you tied this into a life lesson and not just about the coin itself or the bar itself. So I kind of wanted to just stop and say, I appreciate that because these are the conversations that I want to capture. These are the stories that I want people to hear, because I'm about community, and you can only build community by talking to others, and you can only talk to others when you take time. And we all listen to the streams. We all have time to do that stuff, but we don't necessarily just talk amongst ourselves and have other people go, oh, I can relate. I might have an emotional connection. I might have a historical connection to somebody that I didn't, I can follow, and it may speak volumes to me. And if one of these interviews connects somebody to the right person that changes their life or benefits their stream or benefits their workflow or benefits their income or benefits their way of life, they stop seeking happiness and find joy,
Mm-hmm.
then I've done
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I want to do in the community. So I just wanted to say, at the
Frostbite,
top of the middle of that, and say thank you.
brother, you bring up such a great point because listen, my stacking is boring. It's not exciting. It's not super cool. Like I struggle all the time because like I put a display out and I don't have really cool stuff. Right? Like my stuff is just like right? I mean, other than like my crystals, shout out to Mrs. Stacker because she keeps me uh just loaded up with different crystals and wonderful things. And recently, a channel member gave me a beautiful, beautiful compass sundial. And so little things like that, but like I don't stack that way. And I get it. My stacking is boring. But what I'm trying to do is, are we trying to look rich or be rich? Are we in
Exactly.
this for delayed gratification or for that dopamine hit right then and right there? Right. And that's a challenge. And so I'll step back a little bit here because people have seen my hands at least. If you don't know, surprise, I'm black. Just for the record, right? Like
Oh,
I'm black, just for the record.
really?
Just right.
Oh,
Right. And so I will be a little critical of my community, right? And I might get some backlash for this, but one of our challenges is understanding delayed gratification. And I have two main goals. There's broader things about the channel, but two of the things I really want to accomplish is I want to make sure that I connect with communities of color because we're not often we're not taught these things. All communities aren't taught this, but especially communities of color. And I want to connect with women because I always shout out our lady stackers because we know that there is a great gender divide when it comes to finances and between men and women. And so if I can help bridge that, that's part of that tremendous value that I get. And so the challenge for me is there's nothing wrong with buying an $80 coin, right? That's on
right.
you. If that's what you want to do it, right? That's just not that's not what you're going to hear from me. What you're going to hear from me is the heck with that $80 coin, get you 3 generic rounds, keep the extra difference, and then add it to the next coin because it's a game of ounces. And I get it. There are people that you buy lots of coins and some will absolutely be home runs, right? As collectibles, right? And the challenge for me is collectibles. It's like being a home run hitter. When you hit it and you get a hold of it, it goes far and it's spectacular and everyone oohs and ahs. But there are a lot of strikeouts usually with that as well. You're right. For every coin that's gone up double over the premium that someone has purchased, there's a Scrooge McDuck coin that ain't worth anything. There's a Marge Simpson and a Pokemon coin that ain't worth nothing that people have overpaid for. And I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in making sure that you have sound fundamental principles and that helps guide you. Now, if you want to get into that, That do you. That's your money. But what you're going to get from me is here's how we do the foundational pieces. Because once you have a good foundation, then you can, it's like a house. You can add on, you can do all kind of good stuff, but you got to have a good solid foundation. And that's what really drives me in the terms of the content and pushing information out to folks. The other piece is, and folks that have been around see this in my channel, is I talk about emotions and psychology with this because this is basically a whole body change that you have to go through. Like, it's not just as simple as buying the metal and all of a sudden life is good. And I love it because one of my members said it the best. He was like, before I started stacking, my wife and I were living like basically paycheck to paycheck, and we made good money. And he's like, and now all of a sudden I have savings and I've got a stack. And like, if there's ever a reason to we often talk about, like, don't try to convince people to stack, because it's usually a headache because they don't get it. If people aren't ready, it's really hard for them to get it. But what people miss is the power of stacking something real, because everything else we invest in other than real estate is very much kind of this ambiguous thing, right? Like, you buy stocks. Okay, well, I can look on my computer and see that I have stocks, but I don't know what that really means, right? I don't have a stock paper in my hand.
Yeah, exactly.
But when I go and I buy metals, I get it right in my hand and I feel it and I own it and it's mine, and I have this different sense. And I think what happens often is when people really get into it, all of a sudden that $20 is an ounce of gold, an ounce of silver in your mind. And it's like, well, wait a minute now. How am I going to, I could buy an ounce of silver, or I could buy this nonsense that I won't care about in 20 minutes. And so you start to live differently, make different decisions, and you start to value, not that fiat has great value, but you have a greater appreciation of how you can convert that fiat into something more valuable. And then your life changes, right? And the momentum, that it's easy to stack because you're doing something right, and you're changing your life. You're changing the life for those that you love, and are giving an opportunity for that next generation in particular to do better and to see further, because they do get to stand on your shoulders. Because, how different would our lives be if we inherited, 300 ounces of silver and 10 ounces of gold from our loved ones when they passed, and that was how we were starting our lives off, right?
Well,
that would depend.
It would depend on a lot,
right?
Because some people would take it for granted and not understand the great responsibility that they were given.
Absolutely.
Other people would be like, wow, look, that car I always wanted.
Sure.
And other people, would look at that and go, ooh, what I've been given is an opportunity to advance the legacy that was just left me. Now, this is an absolute perfect segue into my last question, which is, if there was one piece of advice that you could give. Now, I want to quantify when I say your younger self. Your younger self in today's terms. Today's market, today's situations, not 80s, 90s, in your younger self and today's self. What is the most influential advice? What is the, Dr. Stacker's number one piece of advice that he would offer to somebody moving forward?
So I'm going to give you a cheat answer, and then I'm going to give you, I think, a little more meaningful answer. So the cheating answer is, sorry, I just hit some silver on my desk here. The cheating answer is start earlier, right? Because if we really understood, as we do in our 40s and for those that are in the 50s, when we were in our 20s, man, the decisions we make, right? I think about the money that I have blown. Lord have mercy, the things I could be doing right now, that if I could have just made better decisions in that moment. But that's almost everything. And so let's take that off the, start. If there's someone in your 20s or your 30s, stack hard right now. Because if you can do that, the next 15 to 20 years, you can absolutely transform your life, because there will be another bull market and another great opportunity coming. But on a kind of maybe a deeper level, you need to be a student of the investment. Now, we happen to be talking about stacking now, but I very much see myself as a real estate investor who happens to stack. And because that's where I got started. And a lot of what I bring to stacking are the things and principles I learned about being a real estate investor. And if you become a student of whatever vehicle you're investing in, and even if we go broader, just whatever it is that you want out of life, be a student of it. Because if you learn it and you understand it, you will be able to navigate it in ways that you won't understand fully, and you will be able to amplify your success, right? Just like that amplifier turns the music up louder, right? That your knowledge amplifies your efforts. And so if you're going to do real estate, then dig in, go study it, go learn it, right? There aren't any more excuses. I mean, we're in 2023. We got computers in our pockets that we carry all day, every day. It's not like when I was growing up, when I had a question and my mom would make me open up the Encyclopedia Britannica and I had to look at the index and then find the page in the volume and go to the other book to get the answer. And it used to drive me nuts that she used to make me do that. But I get it now. I get what that exercise was about. And if folks invest their time before they invest their money, because you always have more time than money, heaven forbid, right? But if you invest that time, then when you put your money in, that learning curve is a lot flatter and you can accelerate your learning curve and you can get closer to your goals a lot faster. My channel has been 9 months, but it was about 5 months in the making before I even did a video. I mean, God bless Mrs. Stacker. She was like, stop it. Go record a video. And I was like, no. And I did all this work. I had a whole database of topics I wanted to cover, intros, the content, what I was trying to accomplish in that video. And I think I had 50 topics at least that I laid out before I even did my first video. And that was about, am I doing the preparation to be ready for the game, so to speak? Right? Did I practice hard all week? Do I dig in? Because if I do those things well, when I get to game time, it's easy at that point, right? And maybe that's some of what I learned from playing football. But if you're doing those things, then when you get to game time's fun, right? Because you've done the work. And so if you're studying and you're learning the investment and you understand how it works, then when you have these opportunities like we have right now, my problem is I don't know which way to put my money right now because I see so many great opportunities, right? Like I will tell you personally.
So that's how you diversify.
Right. Like today, I bought. I've been on a buying hiatus because gold just went crazy, and I'm like, okay, listen, gold's got to come back. It's a part of the normal rotation of the way prices move, but who knows where it's going to settle. But platinum looked pretty darn good to me. Right. And I was never a big platinum person, but as I continue to learn and as I continue to grow, I go, ooh, that looks like a pretty darn attractive investment. And so today I was like, I'm not going to buy gold. I bought 2 ounces of platinum because at that price, it costs $900 to $1,100 to produce, and I'm buying it for $1,100, a little bit over $1,100. How is that not a great investment? But I can't see that. I can't understand that if I don't do the work, if I don't learn, if I don't commit to understanding the investment, and I just do it because somebody says it's going to the moon. Man, there are a lot of people that are sitting on a lot of silver at $35 because they thought they could jump into this market and it was going to go to the moon.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
and that's a terrible situation, right? And here's the craziest part: it's going to hurt the market because when silver finally gets to $35-$40, what are those people going to do? They're going to pull the ripcord and get out of the market, right? And then we're gonna be making progress, and then that market's going to pull back. And so we are becoming our own worst enemy in some ways because of how we brought people into the investment, as opposed to helping people understand what it's really about. So learning is the most important thing. That was like a 10-minute answer to like a 30-second question. So I apologize, brother. But
No, it's all good. I really appreciate the time. Again, it's nice to hear different perspectives. Uh, when we go through life, when we go through hobby, doesn't matter if it's with kids, your wife, your spouse, your significant other. It doesn't matter if it's a work relationship or a community such as this one. Uh, we all have different stories, and we all have different pieces of information that we can wean from those if we take time to chat. So, Dr. Stacker, I appreciate you taking.
let me add one more thing, brother, because you brought up a great point. You brought up a great point. There's so this community, the stacking community, is phenomenal. I mean, it is good folks.
I agree.
Right. And as long as we don't get too crazy, some of the other nonsense about politics and guns and some of we keep it appropriate. It's a great community, right? We're not all going to agree, and that's okay. But it is one of those communities that I feel like that there's just a lot of love, right? As I started the channel, I was like, are people really gonna, do they really want to hear from me? And as a black man, and there's all kind of stuff and fears that kick up as a part of my life experiences, and it's so wonderful to see and experience the community that it's about where are you, what information can you offer, how can you help, and that's what matters. And so we may not always agree on some of the more controversial things, but we do know that our system is not set up for us to succeed, and that we have to make sure that we take control over our financial destiny in particular. And I think that's a really important thing for folks, is taking control, because the system is set up to keep us locked into certain positions and certain way of life. And the stacking is really a beautiful thing. And so if you haven't started, start. And you start exactly where you are. If it's buying 90% quarters every 2 weeks, that's where you start, right? And then from there you grow, and then you stack on, and then you keep pushing yourself, and that your investment in you is the best thing that you can ever do. And I just wish more people would do that, would invest in you. And I get it. Our educational system has not always affirmed or validated all the different types of learners that we have. And that's unfortunate, but that doesn't mean you can't learn. And that doesn't mean that you can't get everything that you want in this world. And so if you don't walk away with anything else, if you're listening to this, you are your biggest barrier. You get to decide if you're going to continue to be your biggest barrier. And what you do every day gets you closer or further away. You get to choose. But when you own that, then you will find a world that opens up very differently to you, because you're no longer a victim. You get to make a choice. You get to choose to buy Starbucks and spend $5 on a cup of coffee that you could have done at home for 30 cents. You get to make different choices about what you buy, and sometimes there just really isn't a difference between the name brands, and you can buy the generic version of X, Y, or Z and save a few extra dollars. But you can empower yourself and not be a victim, not be at the mercy of anyone else, but at the mercy of you and your choices and your decisions. And so if you want it, go get it. No more excuses, no more nonsense. Go get it. It's yours. It's there. Will you go get it? Will you put the work in? Will you make the sacrifices? Will you do what is required to get where you want to be? Right? You can't complain about the things that I got when you ain't made the sacrifices to get where I am. And my sacrifices aren't beyond you, aren't things that you're incapable of doing. It is whether or not you're willing to do it. And that's the most beautiful part about this. Wherever you start, it doesn't matter. You just got to start.
Yep. And nobody has the power over you that you don't provide them.
Absolutely.
There's not a good, there's not a service, there's not a product that has power over you unless you give it to them.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Stacker, again, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Stackers University, again, link will be down in the description. If you haven't gone and checked out his channel, you're missing out. Great information, amazing videos. If you like dad jokes.
Oh, you know it, baby. You know it. Dad jokes, right? Polo shirts tucked into your shorts.
But I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you taking the invitation. I hope you have a wonderful time. Good luck on your channel. And you take care.
You too, brother. Nothing but blessings.